Hello YouTube, this is the Rambling Painter back once again with another video. Today we will be painting this here Leman Russ Demolisher, I believe is what it's called. This one is actually my very first attempt ever at trying to do some form of green stuff. This one I got from the Army Painter, and because they don't make a Kriegsman head model, I had to try and make the gas mask. Not the best. I definitely think I'm going to have to practice some more if I intend to try and offer it as a commission possibility, but definitely for the foreseeable future I will not be doing any molding. That is definitely not one of my skills. Now, today I want to have a talk about kind of the difference between anime, light novels, mangas. I want to have a deep dive about some of the differences. Now, all of that's been, the reason I kind of want to do this is a recent anime that's been kind of big. A lot of people seem to like it. It's The Skeleton Knight from Another World. Now, this anime in particular is one that I personally really love, because I found it as the light novel before the anime was even announced, was even a thing. In fact, I was more shocked when I suddenly heard that it was becoming an anime because, well, I loved the book so much. I loved the fact that this amazing book, this amazing story was getting recognized. I was happy. And I'm still happy for the author, I'm happy for the creators, I'm happy for all of that. And not that they ever would, but if for some reason the author of the books actually somehow comes across this video, I really am hoping for another installation, because I love the work. I really do. I want to see what happens after. I want to see how relationships, friendships, and all this other stuff grows. I really do want to see what is going to come from future books of the series, since the impression is that the books are not done yet. But I'm not too sure. I don't know how the author feels, since originally they had already intended to stop once they finished the initial story, but they claimed in the last book they had made that a friend recommended they continue from where they left off because there were still too many open things that hadn't been discussed, which was a fair enough assessment, and they did a really good job with the next book that they had made, so I do want to see more if the author's willing to make them. However, with the anime, as happy as I am that it's getting spread to more people, as happy as I am that more people are finding it, I have a complaint. And this is not a complaint on behalf of the creators of any of the setups, be it the author, the actual studios. It's kind of what you'd call a complaint of a fan of one part of it. After all, time and time again, you hear this common question of, oh, dubs, subs, light novels, manga, or anime. Oh, what's better? What's better? To me, personally, it doesn't matter. If you like the medium, you like the medium. Now, to me, this is one of those few times where I would say it shows a flaw in the system. Because with animes, typically speaking, you have to cut things out, because you don't have the time. Animes are limited. Animes have a set time frame in which they have to be watched. Whereas a book or a manga, people can read that at their own leisure. Sure, they might have a deadline as to when they want it out and available to the public, but that's very different from, oh, well, the people only have X amount of time to watch it because we can only make so long of an episode. So usually animes cut things out. But normally, what they cut out is either unimportant, not as important, or something that can be glossed over. My problem with this one is this one's an example of when things go wrong, because I love the story so much of A Skeleton Knight from Another World. In fact, I love it so much, I would actually highly recommend, if you are watching this and you have not read it, have not watched it, stop now and go and do that. If you have not read it or watched it at all, watch it first. Watch the anime, then read the book. The reason I say that is something I'm going to get into in this video. But I would highly recommend watch it first, see how you feel about it, and if you're not sure when you're watching it, if you just can't get into it or you have a problem with it, then switch to reading it. Buy the first book, see what you think. If you don't like it, then stop and no skin off your teeth, you tried. Now, personally speaking, my biggest problems with the anime stem more from the third episode onward. The first and second episodes have their problems, but minor problems are minor problems. So let me get into some of the key differences and why I had to stop watching the anime personally, because I couldn't get into it due to my prior knowledge. So, first things first, with the anime. Episode 1 immediately starts off right. In the book, it's the same exact thing. It starts with the assault on the nobleman's daughter. It starts with all that. That is how the book starts. So far, we're looking pretty. We're looking real good. It's getting information right. Something that you can't always say with anime. Sometimes some of them start completely differently, or they forget massive portions because of time constraints, and they deem it as less important. This one, they start immediately the exact same as the book. It's looking promising. And then we cut to Arc. The first time we get to see our titular main character, and wonderfully so, very similarly, it is very close to the actual book. A few differences, but nothing to the point of actually needing to take note of. It's kind of like that, kind of like the case of like with Harry Potter, where like, I think in the book where he got his like special broom, he doesn't just fly off at the end of it, they like confiscate it or something like that. I don't know, I can't remember, but you get what I'm getting at there. It's nothing crazy, nothing spectacular, and it's like, what minor differences are there? Aren't something you'd really care about too much. However, then we get the first thing wrong. And that's when Arc goes looking and appears at the town. Now, the reason that is wrong, if you have read this, and now, key point, another section, from here on out, there's nothing but going to be spoilers. If you have not watched it all the way to the current one, I would highly recommend stopping and finishing watching to the current one. If you have not read past the second book, stop now, go and read more. And if you have done none of those, unless you just don't care and you kind of want to hear what I'm talking about, or see me continuing painting this, I highly recommend turn it off now. And go and watch it, read it, something. Because this is where I'm going to be completely spoilers from here on out. Now, what happens first in the anime? Arc goes into this first town. And in this first town, he gets his first taste of the world. He gets to see things, see people. It's cool, it's interesting. And I believe he also happens to see an elf for the first time, and it's Ariana, just out in the streets talking to somebody who is like an informant of some kind. Now, from there, he finds the mercenary guild, goes out on his first trek to try and kill some monsters to prove that he can join the mercenaries guild, complete their challenge, and all that. Now, that is not far from the book in terms of, there's a couple things wrong with that, and one of them I'm going to hold off on. But the Mercenaries Guild and all that, the general layout's right, except for one major problem. What happens after the Mercenaries Guild? He saves this nobleman's daughter from these bandits. Heroically, he saves them, sends them on their way, and he goes back to the inn. Problem is, in the book, the way it happens, that is the very first thing he does, is save those people. He finds them on the road, sees them getting attacked, saves them, and they're the ones that guide him to the first town. He doesn't just stumble upon it by going out and searching. No, he is taken there by the people he saved, and in their gratitude, they offer to help him, of which he only asks for an easy way in and out of town, and they give him a copper pass, denoting that he is friends of the nobleman's family. That way he can get in and out of town with ease. Now, I don't know if the pass is brought up in the anime. I don't remember seeing it, especially since I stopped at the 3rd episode. Now, again, if you want to complain that I should watch more of it, I apologize. I don't want to, because I know the book. And the anime so far has been torturing me once the 3rd episode came out, and once I saw some other clips of later episodes. But I'll get into that in just a moment here. So, already we have a discrepancy. Now, like I said, it's not a major discrepancy. Timing's off, but general gist is the same. Okay, that's not bad. Then he goes and goes to the Mercenaries Guild after he saves them, and he accepts the request for helping out the village girl in the anime. And correct, that is right. The events are playing out somewhat right again. Because it's after everything else, after saving those people, after actually going and completing his trials, he does his first quest. And it's going and helping out this girl in this village that is seeking assistance with herb picking. This is all right. So far, so good. He goes out, he finds the village, he finds the girl. The people are shocked and scared because here's this knight suddenly here in the village, kind of out of nowhere. But he's polite, he passes himself off as just a general mercenary, nobody that the guards themselves need to try and show reverence to or anything like that. He meets the girl, and off they go. So far, so good. A few dialogue changes, but to be expected. Everything is going smoothly so far from this point onward. They're going through the forest, they're experiencing things, there's the warning of the monster that shows up, which sends the mother back searching for her daughter. Then is when we run into our second problem. And that's when, out of nowhere, we meet Panta, the lovely little cotton-tailed fox, the food-loving, lovable little goofball, that, in all honesty, is probably the second best character to Ark himself in the entirety of the book, and possibly show. Although, again, like I said, I stopped at the 3rd one, so I don't know what most people think about him. But I love him. I loved him in the book. I'm sure I would still love him in the anime if I was willing to give it a chance. Which I want to. Believe me, I do want to give it a chance. But I did, and I keep giving it a chance when I see new content posted by people, and I'm constantly disappointed. And again, this is not anybody's fault. It's a difference in viewpoint and what needs said and done. So do not take this as me criticizing them and the creators of the book, the anime, any of that as, oh, look at you, Puritan. No, I'm okay with changes because I understand they have to be made. The problem is the severity of a number of these changes. And this one, again, not so bad, not so horrendous. He finds Ponta sooner than he did. A little problematic considering what we are told of in the book about Ponta and spirit creatures and how they typically don't like humans. So why he was okay with the little girl there, it kind of doesn't make sense. But again, time constraints, they have to cut things. They have to shorten things down. So, okay, I was willing to accept it. The Basilisk fight, perfect. The Basilisk fight actually seems to mirror perfectly to the actual light novel. That was great. And then from there, we have a small issue. Again, I'm bringing these up to show the difference. I'm not bringing them up because they truly bother me. Because some of these issues, they don't bother me, but I'm giving an example here, so when I talk about a couple others later, you can kind of see where the differences can lie and the problems that can come from them. But one of the problems that happens is he orders this big meal from his inn. Well, as far as we know, he's still in the same inn from the very first city, the very first inn he goes to. In the book, it actually specifies that it is an inn that does not serve food. It is an inn that you have to bring in and make your own food. That is noted very, very specifically within the book. And so it's kind of weird him ordering food and all this when that was not something he could do. It is actually the second inn that he goes to where he can finally order food rather than having to provide and make his own. But again, small nitpick, not important, something that can be glossed over and is acceptable. However, the third one is where I have a major issue. And my major issue is pretty much this. What happens in the third episode? Well, in the third episode, I know I haven't talked about Ponta yet. I'm actually getting to that here in just a second. In the third episode, what ends up happening is we find our main character, having stumbled upon some bandits in the woods, suddenly gets attacked. Attacked by the very first elf he had seen in the city, calling him a bandit and a kidnapper. And he tries to argue that he is not part of whatever group has done this. Of course, she doesn't believe him because he is a human. And they have a fight. And I think if I had to, and I had to stop there. But if I had to guess, what ends up happening is it's Ponta's sudden arrival that kind of puts a stop to it. Like, shock. Spirit creature? How do you have that? Why does it like you? They don't like humans and all this other stuff. Now, I don't know if that's actually how it plays out. That's a very rough guess as to the path they possibly took. However, my problems with this in particular, and the reason it made me stop watching, it might sound childish, or it might sound a bit, I don't know, pessimistic, shall we say, maybe? That's probably the nice way of putting it. Maybe a little wrong in terms, but anyways. My problem is the way that it actually happens, the way it happens in the book. What we have is he goes out, and after he helps the girl in the village, he goes to a brand new town, city place, and he goes out into the forest for a walk, a random walk, and he is attacked by bandits who see him as a knight by his lonesome that they can fight, or just rob and steal the stuff from, and he'll just leave it and go because he's outnumbered. This is the first time we really get to see his strength in a far, far greater light. Yes, we have seen his amazing power with his sword, what we have not seen is his actual base level strength. And we get this here. The very first guy that came up to him, in the book, he punches him in the face. And I believe it literally rips his head off. He literally knocks the guy's block off. And this terrifies the others. And he turns to the guy next to him after doing that, saying he's far stronger than he thought. And he immediately does an uppercut, and puts his fist through the guy's chin and out his head, to where he's wearing the guy's skull as a wristlet. This is the kind of physical power Ark has. To me, it's an important scene because it really kind of shows where he stands above everybody else. It really gives a sense of weight to his strength against the humans of the world, against everybody. Because after all, that's not normal. That's not something that just anybody should be able to do. That's powerful. And from there, he chases down the last remaining bandit, barreling through trap after trap, himself describing himself as a tank as he just runs through things, literally taking spikes and things to the face, and not caring because his armor blocks it all, protects him, does all this stuff. And it's a cool described scene because it shows how amazing and powerful our protagonist is, while the other guy's terrified. And he chases him all the way to their hideout. And once he reaches their hideout, what happens? Well, he kills that guy that he was chasing and the last remaining guy, and then he starts looting the place. While he's looting the place, he stumbles upon a cage. He hears some noises, and in the cage he finds an injured green fox. This is how Ponta is found in the book. He is found in this cage in a new town that he's gone to after he helped with the herb picking, and then from there proceeded to save Ponta, heal him, become his friend, all by himself. And then's when we get another important thing. He's heard of elves, but he's never met one. He meets his first elf after he finds Ponta. First elf ever met, and it's not Ariana. No, this is a key distinction, a key importance. The first elf ever that he meets is an elf named Darak. D-A-R-A-K? K-A? A-K, I believe. This is the first elf he ever gets to meet. And he is rude, because there is massive prejudice against elves. And in fact, if it hadn't been for Ponta being there, he would not have ever trusted Ark at all and would have attempted to harm him. Well, definitely worse than that, but I'm going to leave it at harm because I genuinely don't think he could have beaten Ark. But that's the thing. Ark is not everybody. Ark doesn't care that he's an elf. He is genuinely just interested to meet him and is very polite, despite the fact that most humans aren't. And Darak kind of informs Ark slightly of the things that he's there to do. I don't know if it's allowed to say on YouTube, so I'm going to try and skip it. You know what? No, I'm not. I'm just going to say it. There are enslaved elves in the capital, or the place that Ark is currently staying at, that he's trying to set free. And he basically threatens Ark, saying, "You're not going to say anything, right?" Of which Ark agrees and says he won't, and he doesn't. And he actually tries to see if he can help find where they're at, without telling Darak, of course, because Darak doesn't want anything to do with him. Now, it actually states, like, it is, like, a week later or something like that. And believe me, again, this is a difference where anime, they're not going to say all these things. That is 100% fair. But what we get is 1 week or so, or a little over a week, after he has found Ponta and met his first elf. Ark goes in, and there is a mission on the board to try and find somebody that went missing in the woods. And he goes out to find that person. And he didn't, and this one's unimportant information, but he doesn't accept the quest because somebody told him, you don't accept these quests, you keep it in the back of your mind, and you accept it after you found the guy, whether alive or not. Well, he goes and he finds what he believes to be the guy in the forest, no longer with us. And then he decides to follow the trail of blood that was left behind. And in his travels, he passes into elf territory, from what he's been told by other people. And from there, he's attacked by a dog bear, which he scares off, that then attacks a caravan of these slavers that are kidnapping elves. And what happens then is when he sees them, he's observing, he's planning on going in, and then, for the first time ever, Ariana shows up in the story. She shows up attacking the caravan with one other elf warrior. And from there, while they're attacking, the one from the shadows with a bow, and Ariana up front with her sword, then they suddenly get overwhelmed when one of the guys decides, this isn't a good opportunity. We can collect. We can get some better elves because all the ones they got were kids. And so they use the children as fodder, putting a sword to the one's leg and cutting it deeply and basically saying, surrender or we kill them. And so Ariana goes to surrender, but at the last minute, in comes our favorite hero, Ark. Ark shows up, teleporting right behind the guy that has done it, and puts his fist in his back, to which he describes the guy's back basically splintering. And while he did not die from the punch, he was taken out by Ariana after the fact. But their first meeting in book, in light novel, in story, is friendly. The other elf is suspicious because he is clearly human because of his armor. But Ariana sees both his teleportation magic and his kindness, or his willingness to help them, takes that to mean that he is not bad, as well as the fact that he has a spirit creature with him. They get a little suspicious when he makes a few comments or some things, but it's quickly dispelled, but they never fight. Now, to me, this is a key distinction, because, again, like I've been saying, I'm in spoiler territory here. If the anime I definitely know has not touched on this, so I'm fairly certain it has, and I should say, since I don't really watch it. But I would definitely say back out now until the anime stops airing for a while. Or something like that, or until you read the books. But what ends up happening is Ariana goes and they never fight. They go and she recruits him, offers to pay him because he's a mercenary and he's willing to help and his teleportation magic is important. But the difference, the distinction, and the reason I find that this is what irks me, their relationship throughout the book is super important. It is noted multiple times that she has feelings for him. Ark doesn't realize for a number of reasons, One of the reasons being his not truly undead, but his skeletal state suppresses his emotions. He doesn't realize these things as much. But from there, but that's kind of the thing. They never fought. It was not a stereotypical anime greeting where it was, oh, suspicious, attack, wait, friend, ally, relationship. No, it didn't do that in the book. But here in the anime, it seems like what they went for. They went for a stereotype, and I hate it. I really do. Because to me, it ruins a fundamental feeling about their relationship. The fact that it wasn't standard. She fell in love with him for a variety of reasons. Arc is amazing, and their friendship grew for many reasons, and they never fought against each other legitimately. Every fight they have had has been sparring, practice, things to teach and learn, not, oh, my enemy, my foe, shall I defeat thee? Oh, wait, you aren't my enemy. And that irks me. That irks me that they took the path of least resistance. They followed the trope instead of following what this book actually told. And especially, too, since, sure, not everything could have been shown. I'm not saying, oh, they should have done it word for word, all the same. No. But this is a key point, a key factor in who they are, and to me will affect how they are viewed later. In fact, the same thing actually goes to me later on. In, I believe, the 4th episode, I've watched the clip where they save the elven women from the town. The 2 elven women from the local lord. My problem with that one is actually how they're found and how they're saved is so different from the book, and the fact that it feels like it weakens them. Now you might be saying that sounds a little strange. What do you mean by that? Well, let me phrase it like this. The book, how does it happen? In the book, Arc and Ariana, they sneak in, they go to the dungeon, they find and free the first one who is behind a barricaded door. Arc again showing off his strength by just straight up ripping it off, ripping the door, or kicking the door in and into the other wall. Like, super strength, super scary, yeah. However, the other elf is not there. They are told that other elf has been taken to the nobleman's chambers for what many of us will note to be obvious reasons. Because the book knows it's smart enough, because we're smart enough, because it doesn't just flat out tell us. Because it expects that we can all infer, we can all understand. But when Arc, Ariana, and the new elf reach those chambers, they are not greeted by scenes of horrible violence against that elven woman by this man. They're not greeted by all this other stuff. No, they're greeted by her having overpowered, broken free, and pinned the man to the wall with a knife. It shows how strong the elves are. She utilized the distraction, the problems of the city to break free and attack the person who kidnapped her, attack the one who has been violating her, to the point that she pinned him to the wall, and Arc quite literally says, pretty much almost as soon as they walk in, she delivers a powerful kick betwixt his legs, and he lets out a groan so nasty that even though he has nothing, because he is a skeleton, he can't help but feel pain in what once was there. And from there, the guy cannot get down from the wall because he is pinned in place by a knife through his hand. To which point, he goes on to say who he is, how powerful he is all this other stuff, and then the 2 elven captives that he had promptly beat him to the point that he is no longer with us. Not that that is a bad thing. 100% he deserved it. But it shows a level of strength to them. Not just those characters in particular, but to elves in general. To me, that introduction is an introductory to their strength as people. And the anime took that away. The anime put both of them in there for the sake of time. They're both tied down to the bed, and they bust in, blowing open the door, and save them. At least from the clip I saw. I didn't watch... It didn't show everything, so I don't know what all happened after, if everything else was the exact same as the book, but at least the saving part was different. And to me, in a way that fundamentally undermines showing just how strong the elves are. I like how the elves are portrayed as super strong in the book. I like how they are not some weak faction or some low amount of people way in the back of the forest just hiding out of fear or a desire to stay secluded. No, they've been persecuted into the woods to its deepest parts, protected by their original founder that brought all the elves back together. Most of them. And then they got them to safety, created the Great Forest of Canada. And from there, things go on. He helps them more, and in the process meets Chiome. But that, to me, is the thing. The minor differences never hurt anything. Minor differences don't harm the story, because there's always going to be minor differences. There has to be, because you can't accommodate a book into a show perfectly unless you want to make episode after episode after episode, because a lot can happen in a book. In fact, another good example of a good anime adaptation that still struggles with some of the problems is Overlord. I actually, if I remember correctly, the first 3 or 4 episodes all happened within the very first book. Like, the very first book of Overlord contains all those things. Overlord had to skip a lot of things at later points to kind of reach this point where it had closely matched up to the last book that had been publicated just before they stopped airing. And they did a good job. There were some things wrong, but nothing major except one thing, but that's something for a whole nother video. That one needs its whole other video. I'm almost at 40 minutes here just talking about my problems with this one. But every anime, every light novel, every manga, they will all have their differences because they have to. Fundamentally speaking, they can't do one for one because they're different mediums that have different effects and different aspects they have to take into account when anything is done with them. Again, I do not dislike this anime. I do not dislike what it is. My problems are because of my knowledge of the book beforehand. So if you like the anime, finish it. Wait until it's all done being made, then go read the light novels. See the differences for yourself. Same thing goes, if you like the light novels and you haven't watched the anime, attempt it. Try and see. And if you are like me and you've reached that point where you just can't, I don't blame you at all, because I personally can't either. And it's not because I don't like it. It's not because it's bad. It is entirely because I personally know the book so much that the fundamental changes to me are just that. They're fundamental changes. So when you fundamentally change something, it's not the same as the product I know. That'd be like saying I made Mickey Mouse blue and purple, and I'm still calling him Mickey Mouse, people would say, that doesn't seem right. That's not his color schemes. What do you mean that's Mickey Mouse? Something's wrong. And they would be right. Fundamentally, what we know of it would be skewed. Something would be off. And to me, that's just kind of how this anime is. I love the book. I love the story. And I have personally no qualms? Oy. I have no issues with the actual anime. I respect it. I love it. I am glad to see it getting the attention it deserves. However, there is just something fundamentally wrong with it in my view because of how I've read the book beforehand. That makes it where I can't enjoy it because I notice the differences. Not the small differences. Like I said, small differences don't hurt me. Small differences are not a big deal. But there are major key differences. Big changes, big fundamental changes that to me weaken the story. So, I would highly recommend do what you like. If you are currently invested in one medium that you are of a certain thing that you're liking, do that first. Read it, then watch it, or watch it, then read it. Something along those lines. There's always going to be good and bad versions. Some are better just because you can visualize it. So What, I'm a Spider is a great book and a great anime. They are very, very close to each other. There is very little that they get wrong. But the book is nearly completed. The book is almost done. The anime stopped about halfway through. And when I say halfway through, I mean halfway through the first quarter of the arcs, or something like that. The books are deep. They're powerful. And I like them. Overlord did a great job, but there's a lot of small details that can be very important, I feel, that are skipped, overlooked, or just kind of not noticed. There are a lot of differences between the mediums. I respect all of them. I love all of them. Enjoy them how you wish, but I would highly recommend try to check them all out. I know, money is a problem, 100%. Okay, because it's expensive for streaming services, it's expensive for purchasing the books, the mangas, all that. Especially if you don't want to deal with shady websites and things like that. But I believe it's worth our time to invest in seeing all of them through, because they're all different. I don't think there's a one that's perfectly one-to-one between all three groupings. There's changes made to each. But, all in all, watch the anime if you've been watching it. Read the book if you've been reading the books. Skeleton Knight from Another World, I hope to see another book. You're currently stopped at 9. I hope it gets more. To the creator, if you happen to watch this, wonderful works. I love everything you've done. To the people making anime, I love what you have done. I'm glad you have picked up this wonderful story. My criticisms are not to you, it is to myself. The fact that I personally cannot separate the two pains me. Because I love reading books, I love watching shows, and to me, when they're so different from each other because they're the same thing, sometimes I can't do that. I can't watch the one or read the one because I'm so used to the other, and it ruins it for me. I hate it of myself. You have done nothing wrong by making this wonderful attempt, by doing this wonderful job of making them. It is entirely on me. Well, I guess now is about time to be clocking off. I will be saying I have done a little more research. I'm just about time for me to go ahead and open up commissions, do things like that. It's going to be just a little bit longer. I'm doing some final calculations to make sure I get things right and preparing some final tweaks. As you saw, I tried green stuff. I am terrible at it and will not be offering it most likely. But I am planning on offering building services. I'm planning on offering doing things with the bases. So I have a plan. I'm just not done with it yet. So by all means, once again, if you are interested in what I've been in my paintings, if you're interested in how I've been making these models, if you're interested in what I do, please feel free to leave me messages. I will be getting commissions up and running shortly, and anything you have, Warhammer, D&D, personal handmade models, a scythe, any of these kinds of miniatures, or not even miniatures, models, anything you want painted, feel free to try and contact me. We will work it out, we will plan it out, and I will do my best to try and get things made for you. As I will see you all on the next time, and keep on rambling.